Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if your business relies on things like secure signing or verification, proving trust online, then you've probably run into this term, qualified trust service provider, or QTSP. Getting that status is tough, sure, but what we're digging into today, based on our sources, is the surprising reality of keeping it. It's not like a one-and-done badge. The sources actually describe it almost like a relentless cycle, this kind of circle of life. And there's this real tension, isn't there? You want efficiency, scale, but the rules demand this constant, really specific effort year after year just to stay certified.
Oh, absolutely. That tension is spot on. And I think organizations, maybe especially those where tech isn't their main business, they often underestimate just how big that ongoing commitment really is. So our mission today really is to unpack that. Let's look at the pain points in that cycle and, importantly, find the strategic shortcut the sources talk about.
Okay, let's dive in then. This 11-step process the sources lay out. It's definitely not just a project plan, is it? It sounds more like an operational treadmill.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. So the first bit, steps 1 to 3, you could call that the initial setup. This is all the planning, right? Deciding, okay, we're going to be a QTSP. Then figuring out the resources, the standards, designing processes, starting all that documentation.
Right, groundwork.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot, but finite.
Exactly. Heavy lift, but you get through it. The circle of life thing really starts to bite after that.
When does that kick in?
It's when you move into actually getting it running and certified, steps 4 through 6. So you implement the processes you designed, you do all the rigorous testing service, docs, everything, and then bang, you get your initial certification. You're officially a QTSP.
Okay, celebrations, but the clock's ticking now.
Immediately, yeah. And this is where the real monster, that loop, comes in. Steps 7 through 11, the sources call this the endless loop.
Okay, lay it out for us. Where does the agony really start?
Well, step 7 is just operating the service, business as usual, kind of, but then boom, step 8, annual recertification. Every single year, that's a massive fixed thing. Auditors, internal teams scrambling.
And things change, technology moves on, so you can't just leave the service as is forever.
Yeah.
Right, you hit step 9. Updating the service.
Precisely. You have to update. And here's the kicker, the technical headache. Because you touched a certified regulated service, you are immediately punted to step 10. Getting new certification for that updated service. You might have just finished your annual audit.
Oh, wow. So update means recertify immediately.
Yep. And then step 11, it's almost darkly funny in how blunt it is. It just says, go to item 7.
Back to operating. Waiting for the next audit, whether it's the annual one or another one, triggered by an update. Ouch.
That loop, exactly. Steps 4 through 10, essentially, implementation testing, initial certification, operating, annual recert, updating, new recert. That's the churn. That's where the costs just pile up, specialized staff, monitoring, constant audits. It repeats endlessly. And that continuous drain makes it really hard for QTSPs to scale effectively.
Okay, so we've clearly established this is a huge recurring burden. That 11-step treadmill is real. Which brings us straight to the core question from the source material. If you need that QTSP status, but you're stuck in this regulatory cycle, how do you actually reduce the pain, the complexity, the cost?
Right, and the answer the sources point to is pretty clear. Strategic subcontracting. They make a strong case that the smartest way to cut down on the costs, the risk, the sheer headache of that technical loop, steps 4 through 10 again, is to subcontract the really critical technical bits, like the actual digital signing process itself. Hand that off to a third party that's already qualified and certified.
Okay, but wait. QTSP is all about trust, right? Legal weight. If you subcontract the core signing function, doesn't that kind of undermine the whole point? Isn't that riskier?
That's a really fair question.
Right.
The key, according to the sources, is what you keep versus what you offload. The reliable way to do this is using a specialized, qualified cloud service provider, a CSP. Think of the CSP almost like a pre-certified shield for the technical stuff. All the heavy lifting, technically, the signing hardware, the security modules, the certified data center environment that lives in the cloud, and crucially, it's already audited, already compliant.
Okay. So the QTSP itself, our organization, still holds the ultimate responsibility, the accountability.
Okay.
But they delegate the burden of certifying the complex, fast-changing tech parts.
Yeah.
So what must they keep in-house then?
They absolutely keep control over the governance, the customer relationship, all that. And technically, this means they must maintain the secure connection, the secure pipe between their systems and the cloud service. And they also have to maintain the security perimeter around their own internal environment. So think of it like this. The physical security, the hardware headaches, the OS patching, the HSM management, all the stuff that triggers steps 4 through 10 that becomes the CSP's problem because it's covered by their certification. The QTSP focuses on managing the secure connection and setting the policies for who uses the service and how. The actual signing happens in virtual instances hosted by the CSP, leveraging their existing compliance.
Okay, that really reframes it. You're not outsourcing your responsibility. You're outsourcing the certification complexity of the underlying tech stack.
Yeah.
It lets you focus your own people on governance, policy, clients, not server racks, and audit prep for the hardware.
Exactly. Strategic outsourcing of the certification burden.
Right. Which brings us nicely to the payoff. Let's talk specifics. If you make this shift, offload those painful steps 4 through 10, what tangible benefits actually land in your lap?
Well, the biggest one is sidestepping that constant certification risk and cost for the hardware and technical processes. The auditor's job, when they look at the QTSP itself, gets much simpler because that whole complex, high-maintenance tech stack, handled by the cloud provider, covered by their certs, the sources break the savings down into roughly 4 main areas hitting those pain points we talked about.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is pretty straightforward, significant reductions in cost. And this isn't just, saving a bit on servers. It's avoiding huge capital costs for things like hardware security modules, HSMs, which are expensive, and the cost of building and maintaining a physically secure, certified room for them. Plus, your operational costs drop, less repeated testing, fewer of those super specific frequent technical audits. You basically swap unpredictable CapEx and regulatory OpEx for a more predictable cloud subscription fee.
Makes sense. And the second area, you mentioned staffing earlier. That's a big one in tech.
Oh, huge. Second saving. Staffing skills and upkeep. Finding and keeping people with the niche skills for QTSP, compliance, technical regulation, infrastructure security. It's tough and expensive. If you offload steps 4 to 10, you don't need that big internal team just focused on keeping the tech stack patched, compliant, and ready for the next audit. Your existing team can focus higher up the stack on business logic, governance.
Less time fighting fires, more time building value.
Huh.
Okay, third area. This must hit the certification pain directly.
Yep. Third is reduction in certification complexity. And this might be the most valuable bit, honestly. Your own audits become simpler, faster, cheaper. Why? Because the auditor's scope is narrower. They don't need to spend days checking your data center's physical security logs or diving deep into cryptographic key management on the signing hardware. They mainly look at your governance, your policies, and that secure pipe to the CSP. Less auditor time means lower fees, less disruption.
Right. Less for them to dig into, less time, less money, less hassle. Makes total sense. And the fourth benefit, you mentioned speed.
Yeah. Number 4 is improved time to market. This is crucial. Say you want to launch a new signing feature, or maybe upgrade the underlying tech for performance. If you do it all internally, that triggers step 9, then step 10, update, then recertify everything. That can take months, stalling innovation. But if you're leveraging an already certified cloud platform, you can often roll out new services much, much faster. You get agility that's basically impossible if you're constantly recertifying your own foundation every time you innovate.
That's a really clear breakdown. So to pull it all together from this deep dive, the sources are showing a really powerful way to handle that tough 11-step QTSP cycle. Instead of getting bogged down running the whole technical show internally, you can gain huge efficiencies, cost, speed, simplicity by strategically letting qualified cloud providers handle those repetitive, high-risk technical certification steps.
Exactly. And that brings us to the bigger thought for you listening to this. It's not just about technology or cost savings. It's fundamentally a governance decision about strategic risk placement. Making this work hinges on being really clear and disciplined about what you absolutely must control directly, that secure pipe, the perimeter policy, versus what you can safely entrust to an external certified expert. And that leads to a broader question, really, that applies way beyond just QTSPs. When you're looking at any critical service your business relies on, how do you properly weigh the ongoing cost, the complexity, the expertise needed to certify and run it all internally, versus the potential benefits, the reduced complexity, the managed risk of using an external solution that's already certified? It really boils down to a choice. Like, are you managing complexity or are you strategically managing risk? Something to think about.